Good evening once again, and welcome to Candid Conversations with NVGEBE. This is the first of many public information and outreach events we have planned. With all the crisis we have endured together, we are now working on building an even closer relationship with everyone, the community of St. Maarten. Thank you for taking the time to attend this meeting and share your thoughts and concerns with us. This is all being taken very seriously. As you can see, our management is here with us today with all hands on deck. Our goal is to have a better understanding and in-depth discussion on NVGB's state of affairs and explore solutions together with you and for all of us. Again, I say it's about solutions. Today, we have a great turnout. However, our time is limited. To ensure that everyone has time to ask their burning questions, we have established a few rules of order which are for everyone's benefit. These sessions are being videotaped as part of our video blogs series, which will be shared in our community, our communications with the community, Question cards were provided for you to submit your questions. Please complete and submit the questions so you can get the opportunity to ask your question in an orderly fashion. These questions will be used for future reference and communication and to build an even better GEBE. Your name will be called in the order the questions were submitted. Each person will be provided with 30 seconds to pose their question. This allows time for everyone to participate without one person dominating the discussion. This also allows everyone to get a chance. We really want to hear what you and everyone in the room have to say. Unless the question is directed to a particular person, a select member or members of the management team will respond based on their area of expertise. We understand for some that you may be passionate or even frustrated, but we ask that everyone remains respectful during these sessions when asking questions. All cell phones we're asking to be placed on silent. There will be no videotaping, audio taping, or going live. We have expert videographers and photographers on site who will be providing all footage for dissemination. Before we open the floor, we have a few warm words of welcome by Mr. Troy Washington, our temporary manager of NVGEBE, who will also introduce the management team. Mr. Washington?
Good afternoon, everyone. One time. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. Thank you very much for participating in this session today, which is extremely important to GEBE, especially seeing the number of adversities that the company has been over the past years. GEBE has been facing difficulties since 2017, as we know, the passing of Irma, and Maria. 2020 we had COVID-19. 2022 the hack, and now today what we call the energy crisis. Before we get into the meat of the discussion, I would like to first thank my staff for being resilient, dedicated, and all hands on deck at all times. I appreciate that. Once again, I would like to thank my staff. And of course, I would like to thank the population for being understanding. Thank you again for being cooperative, and thank you for being patient. And before we get started, I would like to introduce my panel. My close left is Ms. Micheline Stevens, who is the head of the commercial department. Sitting next to her is Patrick Drivers, who is the distribution manager. And next to him is Hernandez, who is also the assistant distribution manager. I will give the opportunity to each one of my staff members to introduce themselves individually. We will start with Ms. Micheline Stevens.
Good afternoon to everyone, and thank you for being here. My name is Micheline Stevens. I am the head commercial operations at GEBE. This department consists of the billing, the collections, disconnections, meter affairs, and customer service. Of course, you are aware that during the time of the hack, during that time that it happened, we lost at least a year's data, which means that within this area, we had to rebuild data. It was thousands of paperwork that we had to piece back together. But currently, we are at 94% complete billing. All our customers are back in the system, and we are proceeding as we go forward. So as we continue, you will get some more information as the questions are asked. But that's just a highlight of where we are within the commercial department.
I would like to give the floor to Mr. Patrick Drivers, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Patrick Drivers. I'm the distribution manager. My department takes care mainly of meter installations, operations and management of the grid, streetlights and the infrastructure for the streetlights, and also the electrical and water infrastructure management as well.
Ananya?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ramiro Hernandez, Assistant Distribution Manager for the Distribution Department, responsible for water and electricity operations, maintenance, metering infrastructure. And we are the people that are on the streets trying to give the water and electricity to the clients, to the people of St. Maarten. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. We'll now have Mr. Washington dive a little bit into a number of issues. We're going to talk a little bit about the cyber attack, engines, the fuel clause, renewable energy, and GEBE improvement roadmap.
What I'm going to do then, I would change the dynamics of it. I see everybody's burning here to ask some questions. So what I would do then, I just open up the floor, start taking the questions, and you can get the Candid conversation ongoing.
So we'll have the questions. I'd like to call Miss Lewis, who's going to moderate the question and answer session.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here with you this afternoon. And I know you have several burning questions, and that's why we have the management team in the hot seats. So without further ado, we will be calling upon your name and ask you kindly to come to the mic in the center of the room. You may ask the question that you like, and we will put up a 30-second timer. Within those 30 seconds, you can ask your question, make what statement you would like, and then provide our management team with the time to respond. Okay? So to those who have not submitted their questions as yet, there is still time to do so. So just keep turning them in, and we've come up with this format to allow everybody the opportunity to ask their questions. And the first person who came in smiling, Mr. Michelle Williams, we're calling you to the mic now, please. Come on up.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Michelle Williams, born here in St. Maarten in 1983. I'm a professional, I'm a father of two, and I'm a husband. My question to the leadership of GEBE is, are you in control? A management team is supposed to be in control and be able to direct and have a future state of the company, and especially if it's such a important part of the infrastructure for the entirety of the community of St. Maarten. If we cannot even get a forecast of the outages and the load shedding that we can expect tomorrow, next week, how can we even have a plan for the future? So the base of my question, are you in control, and can you even provide us with a little bit more clarity on when we can expect the load shedding further than 5 minutes ago, because my power went off and I found out that way? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Mr. Williams. Thank you for that question. I will give half of the answer, and then I will pass it on to Mr. Drivers when it comes to the load shedding. If GEBE has a plan, GEBE absolutely has a plan. GEBE is dealing with current management is dealing with an inherited issue that GEBE right now in terms of capacity. At the moment, we have 3 engines down, which is engine number 9, engine number 8, and engine number 19. Engine number 19 is our biggest unit. It's 11.3 megawatts to be exact. And in order to supply reliable energy to the community, the company needs to rely on this criteria what they call N-2, meaning 2 of your largest engines are supposed to be able to go down and still provide the community with energy. Now, seeing that engine number 19 is out of service, which was a technical breakdown, that wasn't a planned breakdown, forced us not to be able to take down not able to maintain engine number 15 and the plant maintenance that we had in place. Therefore, we are pushing our engines, not able to maintain them in time while we're getting these technical breakdowns. Because if we should take down the engines, that means it will be larger, widespread load shedding. Because load shedding is based on the load of the transmission cable. So it's not like a community that we pull. Let's assume that right now we're about 14 to 15 megawatts short of capacity. So in the event that the distribution department or the power plant is seeing that they're reaching the peak demand, which comes around from 12 midday till about 6, 7 in the evening, and then if we don't pull the load in time, there's a chance of a major blackout. So the power plant would indicate to the distribution department that they're about 4 megawatts short, which cables has the most load, and those are the cables that will be pulled in order to save a blackout. But in order with the load setting schedule, I'll pass down to Mr. Driver so he can give you further information on that.
Good afternoon once again. To elaborate a little bit more on the load shedding is just not done because we like to pull the cable. It is also done based on certain criterias. We have areas that have schools, we have pump stations, and it is not, I don't think it's ethical to even pull a cable that has pumps that deliver water to the people. Now, could imagine you being out of electricity and out of water, but not only your district being out of water, but other districts, for example, who that don't or also have electricity, but don't have water. So we try to keep especially the ones for where we have the pumps installed, make sure that those are the areas that are not pulled as frequent as the other locations. Now, during the time from 7:30 till 1 o'clock, we have schools. We don't want the kids to be, of course, in a hot building. So we don't pull those cables either. So I know we have been hearing a lot of cry then that, yeah, my area has been out of power for 3 times or 4 times, sometimes even 5 times. But it solely is, as Mr. Washington already said, based on load demand. We just don't pull any. And these days, we have even started pulling cable not at 12 o'clock, but at 5:30 in the morning. And we don't even, sometimes the distribution department does not even know that the cable is pulled. Power plant sees that there's an issue. We don't have enough capacity on the generators, and they start pulling cables. But we also, at the plant, have a protection device, and where it selects also which cables go out first. But this goes mostly based on a frequency, that if our frequency goes down too much, it throws out some cables to deviate the load. And once it picks back up, of course, we could start putting back cables in. To my knowledge right now, like yesterday, again, we went out at 5:30. We came back and switched all cables back in at 12 o'clock. So you could imagine the stress that we have also as employees, just monitoring the grid and sometimes physically going out there and pulling these cables. And of course, having these power outages. Mr. Hernandez is on a daily basis with his board. You could see it here in front of it, marking down all the times, all the areas, what time, how many times they go out. Again, it's a choice. We make that choice, and it's solely based on certain criterias that we have set for the community. And we do apologize that we have to pull some areas multiple times, but that's what it is. We are trying to just make sure that everybody benefits with the power that we have. Let me say it like that.
Awesome. Thank you so much for those responses. We'll move on to the next question from Ms. Vanessa White.
Good afternoon. I appreciate you giving me this privilege. My name is Vanessa White. I'm a 6-year resident of St. Maarten, also a social media influencer on the island. My question is regarding, is there any kind of mandate set up to keep these big buildings, billboards, resorts without all these lights. We drove home from Kupakoi to Point Blanche the other day. The island was lit up like a Christmas tree. I cannot fathom that they are all on generator all the time. And I'm wondering if there is a mandate for that. I'm concerned about the health of the people on this island. The heat index today was 42 degrees. This summer it's going to be 45, 46. So I'm just wondering, what can we do to, in the very, very short term, to mitigate all of this power being used? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. White, thank you for your question. In terms of a policy, in terms of commercial businesses reducing their load, there's nothing mandated in that. However, we do have discussions with the big power users in terms of assisting us in terms of our capacity issue. For example, we speak to hotels, we speak to the universities that are the bigger users on the grid, but all in all combined, that's about 2 megawatts. We have about 40 megawatts short. So that would not help solve the issue that we're facing right now. The only way we can solve that issue at the moment is importing containerized energy. And that will answer your question.
Thank you. The next question is coming from Greg Holder.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for your time. We appreciate you guys. I'm a local restaurant owner and have been for 13 years in Simpson Bay. And mine has to do with food. How do you give realistic compensation for destroyed food? There's no way I'm going to send pictures of wilted lettuce that I can't serve, filet mignon that is spoiled. There's no way you can tell. How am I going to do this? We have hundreds of restaurants on the Dutch side, and everybody is having issues with spoilage. How are you going to compensate for that? We have a small business. It's not a lot of money, but we're losing an enormous amount. What do we do? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Holder. Very good question, by the way. We are internally discussing ways of how we can lessen the burden on the population. We are doing that. However, the facts remain the facts. We are short in capacity. So I cannot sit here and make promises in saying that you will be compensated. But we are having those discussions internally to see how we can lessen the burden on the population. I know it's easy if this light bulb should burn. I can send my technician to do the investigation to see if it was a surge by GEBE caused it or it was just its lifespan expired. However, in the food industry, we clearly understand where you're coming from. This is something we take up internally. But the fact still remains is that even though we compensate you today, tomorrow there will be load shedding. So we have to find a structural solution rather than an ad hoc solution. But thank you for it.
That's my question. As you say, that's nothing.
Oh, well, the solution is that we are busy getting containerized energy. So it's we're going to import it. We're discussing between the power barge and containers. Until that solution is here, we would have to load shed until we solve that issue. So that is the facts.
So we're moving on to the next person for the sake of time. And that question is from Israel Lemois, the French lady who had one burning question. Is she still here? Oh, there you are. You may ask your question.
This is the same question that Michelle. The schedule, the real schedule.
The real schedule for the load shedding.
And the
Right.
because I don't think GP remember all the appliances. I don't think because the real question is that everybody wants to know here. Because we know your problem, we understand your problem. We are not agree with you, but we understand your problem. But that's no, I don't want that.
If we can't hear you.
V?
The video. The video. Okay, so we understand everything, but the trick is, I think everybody wants to know when it will be finished, when you will fix it. If you say me in 2 years, 3 years, okay, I leave the island before, for sure, but we need a schedule, a real schedule, because everybody say you don't have any money to buy the engine, blah, 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 blah. This is the fault of the government. This is the fault of the NDGB. I understand nada, okay? Me, I want to know why you don't anticipate engine. No, I'm sorry.
Thank you for your question, and we understand clearly. So it's essentially in terms of the schedule, if it's possible to have some type of schedule so people can anticipate and plan in advance. So we'll allow Mr. Drivers if you want to touch on it again. Yes, we understand.
I forgot to also mention that the reason why we cannot give out a schedule, it's dependent as again, one, the load that or the demand from you guys, the consumer, as well as myself. Two, it depends on the humidity, the heat rate on the island, and of course, what is also happening at night, the nightlife. So these are a lot of there are a lot of factors that are involved in order for us to make up the schedule. Sometimes we cannot even make a schedule because, as I mentioned, the power plant is monitoring all the capacity that they have. And once the load starts to increase too quick, they start pulling cables what we don't even have on the list. So they are doing their job to protect the power plant. And I don't want to let you all, or let me say, go through another blackout if we do not switch these cables out. That would happen. And we had that already last week, that we had that blackout. So we try to protect the power plant as much as we can, but sometimes it doesn't work. So we just switch the cables out as much as we can.
Thank you, Mr. Drivers. The next question is coming from Stanislas Benoit. If you can come to the mic, please, or ask your question.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. The next person, Rosita Proctor. If you can come ask your question, please. Oh, if someone can give her the mic, Paula.
Was that too fast? Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. My question is, it's so much a question that I have for you all, but I'll give you one. Why are we fuel higher than the usage we just use every day? The fuel clause is plenty higher than what we use daily. Why is that?
Thank you for your question. The fuel clause before, I was thinking about 2010 roughly, it used to be one number. You had one usage number where it was included the fuel clause. Remember, fuel clause and the base rate combined is the cost of operations. The company that decided back then to make it more transparent to see why you had fluctuating cost of direct costs. So then the fuel clause was split because that's the only moving variable within the entire cost of electricity, because you have a base rate, which is 25%. That's actually what GEBE gets. And the fuel clause is a path through that goes to the fuel supplier. GEBE doesn't make any money on the fuel clause. And based on the market prices of fuel, you will see the increases and the decreases in your fuel clause, because it moves every month. It doesn't stay stagnant. So right now, I think the fuel clause is about 42 cents. When the fuel decreases again, probably hit it in the 30s. But the base rate is GEBE's fixed rate that pays for GEBE's operations. And that's times your usage. So your fuel clause can never be more than what you use. It's multiplied times what your usage is. And that's it.
Thank you for that. The next question is coming from Alston Lawrence. Big Al.
Good afternoon, everybody. Alston Lawrence from X104 and TV15. My question is kind of like everybody else's question, but let's take it to a next level. Is there a possibility, seeing that it's going to be some time before we are producing what our capacity is? You said some things are coming in to help some containers, but until then, because of the entrepreneurs and those people who work at home, outside of town or outside the districts that have schools or have water pumps, can we ever get to a point where we can decide and say, hey, listen, y'all in town is going to go off from 3 to 4 just to keep capacity low so that the island isn't using more capacity than it needs at the time? I know 14 is a lot to be down, but is there a possibility that we can say, listen, the school district is going to be on till 1 o'clock for sure. And then after that, others will be on, because for us, we just need to plan. And that's all I think we want to.
Thank you. Mr. Drivers?
Yeah. Planning, again, we try to plan as much as we can. If you're mentioning schools in districts, we have schools in nearly every district, and that is a big problem. I mean, it is what it is. So we can't just pull those areas, as I mentioned. You have also the hospital that is cannot be switched out. You have the police that cannot be switched out. You have the government building cannot be switched out. So they are they are the areas, as I mentioned before already. Pump stations have to stay on, otherwise you guys don't have even water, what is one of the most essential things that you should have in life. So again, it is not easy making this schedule up. Well, no matter what you can do, even if you say, yes, let's, as you said, throw out town from 3 till 5, we still don't know what the load capacity will be, again, depending on other factors, temperature, and the amount of people on the island, the usage on the island. So it's, honestly speaking, very difficult to schedule.
Okay. Thank you very much for that question. You know, we're all feeling it in one way or the next. So that schedule is something that we will continue exploring and looking into and praying about. Dolores Richardson, can you please come to the mic and ask your question? Is Miss Dolores Richardson still here?
Yeah, my question is that since they don't have enough, how you say, consumption for everybody, why can't then they stop the permits, the building permits?
Dolores Richardson.
Hi,
Thank you for that question.
Ms. Richardson, thank you for that question. But unfortunately, I cannot answer that on this panel. That's something for the Minister of Frowney. Thank you for your question.
The next person, Yolanda Jackson Martina.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having a setting so we can ask our questions. My question is, it was not clear what is the short-term plan for the frequent power outages and what is the long-term plan? And in the meantime, is there some kind of compensation, a little discount on our monthly bills for the disturbance on a daily basis? And also I did research, I think there are generators, agrico generators that you can rent on a short-term basis. They use it in UK. Is there a solution for the short-term solution to get these generators to accommodate the situation now on a short-term basis?
Good afternoon. Thank you for that question. I will start with the last question first, and I know the gentleman sitting in the front there asked a similar question. GEBE does have a plan. GEBE has a short-term, mid-term, and a long-term plan. The long-term plan I will start with first because that's easy to explain. GEBE is planning to increase its capacity by 27 megawatts. Those engines would take 18 to 24 months to be from day of signature to the day I can press the start button. That's about 24 months. And then we're going to increase our grid capacity by 27 megawatts. That's long term. That's an investment between $30 to $45 million off the bat. And of course, it's a capex, so we're going to do financing in order to properly pay for it. Short term, like I mentioned, we're discussing with the full barge and we're discussing containerized engines. Depends on the location of these containerized engines, they can take up to 2 to 2.5 months. However, we are also discussing with other suppliers that can come even quicker. The quicker it comes, the higher our mobilization cost it's had. So we are looking at aiming, I say, to have this solved within the next 2 to 3 weeks. However, it depends on where the assets are located and the time from where the assets are located to St. Maarten, and then still have to connect it to our grid. So that's our short-term plan. And the midterm, of course, will be then continuous upgrading the plant because we will have sufficient capacity on rental. We're thinking about 20 megawatts, which is more than 5 to 6 we have in buffer. So it gave us enough time to take down the engines that are straining in order to maintain these properly. So that's our complete plan in a synopsis. And at the same time, you're saying that if GEBE is going to give any type of compensation, the additional costs that we are going to incur, GEBE's intention is not to pass it on to the community. So that would be then GEBE's the observation that we would do for the population. And to end my answer is that anytime there's load shedding, Once you're not using, you're not paying. So you only pay for what you're using. So if your load schedule for is 24 hours in a day, if we load schedule for 5, you're only paying for 19 hours. So GEBE is actually the one losing the buying again as well. So at all ends, GEBE is losing money. So this is not something that GEBE sees itself in as a great, because we're losing money every day. So I hope I answered your question.
Thank you for that. Dr. Sock, please come and ask your burning question.
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Sock. I'm from Island 92 Radio, and it's been brought to our attention that the solar farm that's located near Sinesta Maho is not in use due to an agreement with GEBE, because Sinesta Maho, the owner of that solar farm, has to purchase their electricity from GEBE. We're also told that AUC, the university, has capacity to power the whole campus, but they're also not permitted to do that because they've been told that they have to purchase their electricity from NVGB. So given the crisis that we're in, given the mode that we're in, and we need to think creatively, what are we doing to let those people, those other sources of power, go to work to provide the extra capacity that we need? Is it true that, is that true? Is that a true statement?
Thanks for your question, Mr. Sock. Let me talk about Maho with the solar panels. Maho's consumption is like 3 times the capacity of their solar installation. So yes, they are using their solar for their consumption, but it's not sufficient for their complex at all, nowhere close. As when it comes to the university, yes, they are on our grid, and yes, they have to be connected to the grid. And that is all based on the concession. It's a law that every entity that is on the island must connect to the GEBE grid. If GEBE cannot provide the power, then of course they could use their backup generators for their use. And yes, we can ask them to go offline, basically go on their generators in order to relieve the load. But as again, what Mr. Washington already said, it's not sufficient to compensate for the 40 megawatts that we are already losing. No, but that's what I said. It's the totalizing, the summarization, what Mr. Washington mentioned, is including the university. So we already know which businesses have generators, which businesses are using and consuming a lot of electricity, and those are the ones that we do ask to go offline, come off of GEBE, and also to use their generator for us to have a little bit relief. But it does not add up to the 14 megawatts that we are actually losing.
Okay, thank you. The next question would be from Kamlesh Ramchandi. Yes.
So good afternoon. My name is Kamlesh Ramchandani.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So my question is, as NVGEBE was aware of the lifespan of engine being 30 years, did NVGEB create a reserve fund for the engines to be used after its lifespan? And if not, why it was not created? Then we wouldn't be having any problems that we are facing today. Thank you.
Great question, Mr. Ramchandani. GEBE is aware of the technical lifespan of each and every one of their engines. Engine number 8, 9, and 7 are normally used as peak shavers. And we have our bigger units, and as I mentioned earlier, engine 19 fell off, which is 11 megawatts gone. Normally, the older engines are used just for peak shavers, meaning from the 12 o'clock noon till about 6, 7 in the evening in order to deal with that spike. In terms of investment, GEBE, we should take a step back in the sense that every time when there's some type of downturn in the economy of St. Maarten, GEBE are the ones that buffer for the population. Let's start in 2017. When there was a hurricane, GEBE absorbed the full fuel clause for the population. In 2020, when there was a COVID, GEBE subsidized the fuel clause. And then we got hacked. Just ask the population, pay your bill on time. And that was a problem. So we always have to pay on behalf of the population, when we ask the population to do what's the return, it's always an issue. So how can it be building up our reserve if we have to keep on subsidizing the population in the times of downturn? So I hope that answers your question.
Okay, thank you for that. Bibi Haj Shah, the next question.
Good afternoon, SMN News. I'll take this a different angle. I know where this is coming from, lack of proper management from previous government, previous management. What I'd like to know, Mr. Washington, Mr. Drivers, when was the last time GEBE purchased a new engine? You just said you knew the lifespan of each engine. If I am correct, in 2019 and 2020, Wärtsilä offered GEBE 2 engines at half price. Why wasn't that taken to prevent this situation?
Thank you for your question.
Ms. Shah, I will pass that question on to someone who was actually in the company during that time. Mr. Dreyfus, would you like to take that? Yes, the question?
Well, let me say like this. I'm not privileged to see those type of contracts or agreements. Again, I'm just a distribution manager. Those contracts go to the C-level, and I cannot answer your question. So if anyone needs to be asked, is the past management.
Thank you. The next question is now coming from Jillian Marlin. Miss Marlin?
Good afternoon, everybody. So a lot of people asked about the short-term goals and what's planning on happening, and I understood that you guys have a lot of discussions, but what are these discussions and what is exactly happening? Because with the hotels, for example, Mr. Divers mentioned that they're working on it and they have discussions, but what is happening? Even with the university and Maho, for example, it might not be enough to cover the 40 watts that we're missing, but 2 is better than 0. Because that way, by me home, 3 times a day, 4 times a day is interrupting my business as well. So even the little bit, the 1, the 2, the 3 can help alleviate a little bit from other places. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for your question. Okay. Let me tell you something that I deal on a daily basis. And my question to specifically, let's talk about Maho and the university, AUC, is how many hours can you be out today? You understand? That's my daily question to them. Thankfully, they are assisting us on a daily basis. I might say not enough because we do not buy the fuel for them. Because at some point, they're going to say, okay, Mr. GB, we can be out 24 hours a day, but who's going to pay for the fuel? So I think that on a level of government, of course, which is not this panel, if government can make a deal with those big consumers who have big generators and give them a break for the purchasing of the fuel, then everybody can win something. But believe me, on a daily basis, AUC is giving us a hand. On a daily basis, Maho is giving us a hand, especially at night when we most need it, because incredibly, the load is very high at night. Very, very high at night. Okay? So that I wanted to...
That's probably all the ACs running at night. Thank you. The next question is coming from Terrence Ray.
My question is pretty much straightforward and simple, given the fact that we've been notified that there may be a pending court case against GEBE. So the question is, what is the legal basis of the fuel clause?
Again, Mr. Lawrence, as I mentioned, the fuel, because look, let me simplify it. If you should order a tire from the US and you have to pay cargo, do you think the cargo ship only charges you for the tire and not the cost of operation? Fuel is a cost of operation. We just decided to split it to show the variable, to show the fuel clause went up and down. We can have discussion and make it back in one figure, but then it's not going to be a transparent figure. And of course, the cost of operation will be included, which includes fuel. So it would be then, how you say, put your nose, spite your face if I could tell you that fuel clause is not part of operations, because You buy the engines, they need to be combusted. How are you going to combust the engines? You have to put fuel in the engines. So I'd invite you one day to run some generator 3 to 4 days and then tell the gas station that you don't want to pay for the fuel. So it's part of operations, part of the cost structure, and there's nothing else at this moment we can do other than try to find other means of reducing the fuel costs.
Thank you. Celine Derby for the next question, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. I do property management in Kupakoi, and I have an issue with billing. I don't get bills. I have commercial rates on residents. I have people that have meters on their bills that are not actually at the building. I've been trying to get this resolved for over a year and a half, and I'm still dealing with it. So I just need some help and to tell me how I can get this solved.
Yes, thank you for that. I think we are aware of that. Which area is this? Kupakoi. Just make an appointment and come in and we'll go through them one by one. We have had many instances in these situations, especially since the hack getting the meters, lined back up the way they're supposed to. And we've sat with the customers and we've gone through them and cleaned them all up. So all you have to do is see me after, and then we will set up an appointment and you can come in and sit down and we can go through it one by one. Okay?
Thank you. Ralph Cantav for the next question.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity. Oh, my time started already?
Yeah.
Okay, first question. From 2006 to now, GEBE has had about 14 to 15 management board appointments. How soon can we expect proper corporate governance to provide real stability? Will GEBE cut down its costs on consultants, considering there seems to be little to no success on the side of the public? What's the status of the financial statements? Can GEBE get a loan to purchase new engines without recent statements? If not, why is this taking so long to process them? And finally, how effective was the crisis management team given the ongoing issues, and is it still part of advising management? I have more questions, but time's
Mr. Cantar, maybe you have to repeat some of the questions because when reading, I'll start answering, but you might have to repeat some. Let me start from the bottom. If the consultants, that was the last one, if the consultant was beneficial or the crisis management?
The crisis management team.
Crisis management, if it was beneficial to GEBE. Let me explain something to the population here. Today, we are dealing with load shedding. If the crisis management team didn't step in, when they step in, you would have permanent blackout. The company had 5 months left of cash. The crisis management team was the one who put the necessary strategies in place in order for us to be here with light and in complaining in a nice way, don't get me wrong, about load shedding. So the company was saved, staff paid, getting all of the necessary merits, and of course, putting the necessary strategies in place in order to increase collections, billing is increased, all of those things been done. When the crisis management team stepped into the organization, the population was misled. There was indicated, I think, in July of 2022, that the billing was about 75% accurate, which is an incorrect statement. Billing was only about 25% of the database. So if you're billing 25% of your database and you have a certain burn rate, the company will losing about 5 to 8 million gallons monthly. And if you do your math, 5 months days on cash, no type of financial tools in place, the company will run out of cash by December 2022. Those receipts in my drawer, everything I'm saying here can be backed by my receipts. The second question was in terms of consultants, right? The consultants were a major part of the success that we are in right now by going from 25% billing to 95% or 94%, billing. Now I can hear saying that because of the consulting and because of the billing and the work they have done, I can be telling you right now that GEBE is willing now to absorb the cost from these additional engines. If you had asked me this in 2022, Ante, forget it. It's not possible. So those are all the progress, all the strive that the company has done over the year and a half that have been there. In terms of corporate governance, you stated that what about the corporate governance? GEBE always lacked corporate governance. That I wouldn't sit here and lie about that. In 2022, only then the 2019 financial statements were done. So corporate governance have already been lacking within the organization. Right now, we are finalizing the financing of 2020, 2021, and also with a plan to finalize 22 and 23 this year. So consultants, yes, they have helped the company. and allow the staff to focus on their core task and allow the consultant to help staff in the hands that they don't have. Remember, Ms. Stephen just mentioned that we lost data for about a year and change. Picture 43,000 accounts that need to be corrected monthly, manually with 6 personnel. We would still be fixing that today if we didn't hire consultants. So the company was bleeding on at least 8 million guilders, 10 million guilders a month. So the consultant have helped us solve that. If we do a cost-benefit analysis, it's clearly you can see the consultant was beneficial to the organization. I don't remember what the last question was.
The financial statements and being able to get a loan.
The financial statement, financing is always, financial statement that's mentioned, you can always produce in-house statements where you can have discussions with the potential lenders and the financial statements and can I get a loan? That's a matter.
Yeah, getting a loan.
That's a matter of negotiations. Because once you sit down with your financiers, and remember, GEBE still has a monopoly on the island. There's no competition other than our sister company, Telem, has flow to compete with. So once you can recognize your revenue and once you're producing electricity and having less blackouts, the revenues are almost guaranteed. And financiers will look then at your EBITDA, where it can justify the amount of obligation that you can take, so the amount of debt that you can handle. So based on all these things and a promise and maybe in a promise and a negotiation that you put in your conditions precedent, where you're doing negotiations in terms of lending, of course, financing is a possibility. It's always a possibility, but then you have to see what type of conditions come to that. Hope I answered all the questions.
Yes, thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Cassandra Everett.
Good evening. Thank you for taking the time to speak with all of us. I'm a travel agent. Tourists spend between $2,000 and $6,000 per person for a week on vacation. And I'm already seeing posts out of Canadian and US travel agent only groups that I'm in. And they're already warning other agents of the issues and concerns on this island. I don't think I need to tell anyone here that tourism is 100,000% one of the most important things to the people of St. Martin. So what do you have in place to fix what's going on, as well as in the future to repair the damage to the reputation of the island for these people so that they can keep jobs? Thank you.
I think earlier today we mentioned the short-term plan. We are busy executing that. We're busy in discussions with the potential suppliers. So in my opinion, once we can come up with our statement in indicating that GEBE has sustainable energy, that would start dealing with the reputation of the country. The worst thing for us to do is go out and give a false narrative that we can supply consistent energy. So being factual with the population and being factual with our tourism, with the tourist market, at least they know where they stand before they book their ticket. So short term, there will be a solution. It's just a matter of where the assets are located and how long it takes to reach here. And then long term, I've explained the long term planning. And once we can guarantee that, well, there's never guarantee in terms of machinery, but once you can increase the reliability of the sustainability of electricity, ultimately that would be the change the perspective of the island, because St. Maarten has never been an island without load shedding. Since I grew up in an island, since I know myself, it's always been load shedding. There's always been electricity going off the grid, and that didn't really hamper the tourism market. However, right now there's more social media, there's more buzz on social media. There's people putting all kind of posts on social media in order to get likes. For me, likes is the same as being rich in Monopoly. But that said, we are putting the short-term plans in place, and hopefully by early next week we can come up with a statement and explain to the population that if you're going to be ready to sign or not.
Still validity in social media and the influence it has on people, whether it's good or bad. So it still has to be a consideration, especially if it's conversation outside of the island.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that I don't take them serious. I have certain people put a lot of posts on social media just for likes. I'm not saying that what's happening.
Travel agents are doing
So, for the sake of time, we will move on to the next question. And in regards to that particular question in tourism, I do recognize that our Minister of TEAT, Ms. Grisha Helga Maarten, she did put out a statement to address that and create a more favorable climate from a public relations standpoint. So the next question is now coming from David Solomon.
Good evening, everyone. So I'm kind of disappointed that I haven't heard it yet, but I'm also happy because I'm the one that can bring it up, which is of course solar. I haven't heard it in your short-term plans. I haven't heard it in your long-term plans. I'm hoping to hear it in your actually both short and mid-term plans because it is a viable option. So why are we not putting some panels up? And I don't want to hear about planning. I don't want to hear about research. I want to hear about implementation. You have 5,000 square meters almost of roof in GB, in KEBE. Put up some solar panels, get a battery, get us into the 21st century. Please, the people need it. Thank you.
Mr. Solomon, thank you for your question. The reason I didn't go too detailed into our plan. I gave a synopsis of what's quickly long term, what's short term. Solar panels is in no way a short term solution. However, in our midterm to long term, we are ready. I don't know if you remember somewhere in beginning of this year, where we mentioned that we engage a company called Energy Nautics. Energy Nautics, we already have been doing our assessment on our grid. We're expecting to have the final assessment handed in the next 2 to 3 weeks by now. And that's part of renewable energy because we need to see how to fit it properly into our grid. Don't forget, when we go towards renewable energy, and let's use solar panels in this example, we got to make sure the inverters are used can match our grid. Otherwise, you can get instability in your frequency, and then what are you going to do? Pulling down the power plant every second someone feeds back to the plant. So all of these things has to be done properly. I know it's a very popular argument with renewable, but we have to do it right. And that is in our planning, but I just didn't mention it there because we were just speaking about the fossil fuel. But it's part of our planning.
Okay. Thank you so much for that question and that response. For the sake of time, or you want to?
So in the assessment, we're doing a proper mix because I know I have some people saying that Maarten can go probably 90 to 100% on renewable. And we're making it all realistic. We're giving a realistic plan where we have to do a hybrid system, probably 60-40, 40-60, whatever it is. But me sitting here discussing with you can show you that we are doing assessment on it because we know that windmills is probably a small percentage. We know that solar panels will be a percentage. And besides solar, we have to think about we look the goal here is about carbon neutral, right? Reducing the carbon emission. So besides solar panels and windmills, we also have different type of fuels you can use, like hydrogen, ammonia, etc., etc. So all of those are part of the reduction in your carbon footprint. So all of those items we are looking at as well to see what type of carbon footprint, how can we reduce our carbon footprint, how much we can do it on an annual basis, and then implement those things. But that study is almost complete, and then be handed over to the government in the coming days or coming weeks, whenever it's ready. Hope I answer your question. I don't see no problem. Why not?
Yes.
I don't see why not.
Thank you for that. So it's 6:00 now, and we have about 20 more questions left. So for the sake of time, we're going to just continue through as swiftly as we possibly can, because we definitely want to get to each and every question. Michaela Gums, can you please come ask your question?
Good evening, everyone. Also, thank you, of course, for taking the time to do this panel. Will there be a report on the timeline of events? Because it's gonna sound kind of bad, and not to really stick with doom and gloom, but we're in doom and gloom and darkness, right, in our houses. Is there going to be a report on the timeline of events that have come up to now? We've had a rat, we've had fire, fuel leak. And the second part to this question is, has sabotage been considered?
I'll start with this question. To be honest, before I started working GEBE, I thought a rap was a joke. I must be honest. Until I started working GEBE, and probably 2 weeks ago, that happened 3 weeks ago, a rat went into the transformer house, and actually Patrick, Mr. Driver, sent me the picture with a burnt rat in the transformer house, and that's when I really start believing this rat story. Because when a rat short circuit the transformer house, it gives back a feedback to the power plant and it shuts it down. So that's what actually happened, and it's actually factual. It's actually the truth. I didn't believe it until I saw the pictures. The other question regarding the timeline of events. GV has been very, very special in the times of events, to be honest. We March May 5th to be exact, engine 19 went down. That's 11.3 megawatts. Engine 17 was actually scheduled for maintenance. We can't do the maintenance on that. A lot of our engines are actually running on reduced load because we can't maintain them. Because if we pull them down, we have to do more load shedding. And for example, engine 17, I think, we have a max capacity of 10, is running at 8. Engine 8 and 9 is completely off. Engine 16, I think, is running on reduced capacity. So we need, these engines are running without the maintenance, so you will get in these type of leaks, these type of mechanical issues. Until these containerized or, let's say, additional power arrives on the island, is when we can really pull on these engines and do the proper maintenance. Because at the moment, if we go and pull on more engines, that means more widespread load shedding and for longer periods. Because please understand, maybe we don't know that. Let's assume there's a breakdown with an engine. It takes about 6 to 7 hours before the engine is cool and safe enough to work on. So if an engine breaks down at 12 noon, the mechanics cannot touch it till 6 or 7 in the evening. And then they have to go down and verify what's wrong with it. And then by the time then they get all of the parts and everything in place, it can take about 2 days just to fix probably a turbocharger. And a normal overhaul of an engine takes 30 to 45 days to overhaul. So we have to understand the time frames what it takes in order to get these engines back up and moving. So I hope I answered your question. And sabotage. Sabotage.
The first part of the question was a report on the timeline, so there's a lot of matters happening, kind of like.
We have internal reporting that handles our incident report because we have our HSES department that does the incident reporting, and I get a copy of those reports every time there's an incident. And sabotage, I will leave that question wide open, and I prefer not to answer that at the moment.
All right.
Wouldn't know. Make it more suspicious?
Due to pending investigations. So we'll move on to York. The next question is coming from York, please.
Hello. Good evening. My name is Shadira York. I'm a resident of Mid-Region. You guys already touched base on why some areas are being affected more than others, but being a resident of Mid-Region and also similarly affected areas like Dutch Quarter and places like that, I feel like it's unfair. This ain't a question, this is a statement. I feel like it's unfair that I have to be going without current for 10 hours a day, some days, while other places, they barely get in touch for 1 hour. I am currently in medical school, the same AUC, studying to be a medical doctor. And I need Wi-Fi, I need current, I need everything to help further my studies so I can be successful, so I can return here and help the people of St. Maarten. There are elderly people in Mid-Region. There are sick people in Mid-Region. There are newborn babies. Why must people be sitting in the cars with their newborn babies because they ain't have current, they ain't have AC, they ain't have this, they ain't have that? It's not fair. And you telling me because we ain't got a water pump, we ain't got a school, that's why we getting pulled? That's not fair. It's not fair. So
we understand your question. Thank you
yes,
so
my
much.
question and my frustration. So thank you.
We understand.
Thank you for your question. I will leave that over to Patrick.
It's not fair, Patrick.
I know it's not fair. Trust me, I share your same sentiments because I live in Colby and I get switched out 4 to 5 times a day. Okay, most of the time I'm at work, but my father, who lives next to me, who's 77 years old, he gets switched out 4 to 5 times a day. And yes, we cannot, again, predict, as I was already saying, what is going out on certain days. We just can't. And we do, for example, for the internet purposes, we do talk to Telem, we do talk to UTS. They do call us for them to also make sure that they have the adequate fuel in their tanks in order to prepare or, let me say, run their generators for their cell sites. So we are in collaboration with our sister companies in order for you all still to be able to get internet as much as possible. Water, again, internet for me is not so essential, but water is. So yes, if there is an area that is on a pump that does not have a tank, I didn't mention that before, because we still are lacking 5 water tanks. Since the Hurricane Irma, we lost 9 tanks. We have been able to put back 4. So we have 5 more water tanks that we need to put back in order to be able to give water. I'll give you a prime example. Mount William Hill tank. If power goes on the pumps in Madam Estate, it gives you about an hour and that tank is empty because it's too small. We are busy doing all the developments. We are in contract with the supplier to be able to build a bigger tank. So yes, we are in different areas doing the necessary work that we have to do. For example, South Reward. If we do pull South Reward, it takes us 2 hours to get water back in the lines because air has to come out the lines. People are still taking water. So it takes for the person to the top of the hill about 2 hours to get water. So now, of course, we have chosen that area, Concordia, to build and replace the tank that was damaged. So we are busy with that. So it should take about three more months and that tank should be finished. So of course, then we could alleviate the South Reward area where we switch out regularly, where we cannot switch out, so that we can go and switch, have other areas with power.
So I must continue.
So for
3 months until I.
so for the sake of time,
Let me say like this, that's just the base, the standard time to build a tank. The foundation, as I said already, has been dug. We are preparing to pour the foundation. So again, the time span for us to build a tank is not that you buy a plastic tank here out of Koiman. It's a huge tank. It's about 1,000 cubic meters of water. So you have to understand, it's not the same size as the ones that in Cahill, but it's half the size of the one in Cahill. So again, it takes time. Everything takes time to get completed. And once that is done, I hope we can just, let's say, deviate the load shedding to your area to that area.
But just to add, it's not going to be 3 months because I just mentioned that our goal is within weeks to have the additional capacity on island.
right.
Okay.
So thank you for your patience in the meantime. So Nellie Baptiste is asking the next question. Nellie,
Blaze,
Blaze. Nellie Blaze.
thank you all for your time and for being here. So I heard you just mention in the beginning of the introduction that you have IT software system. So I want to ask which IT software system that you are using, because I know you guys were using an outdated system of SAP. I want to understand if this new IT system has a cybersecurity feature on it to protect you from other cyber threats. And what is your standard operating procedures that you have in place right now if an emergency were to happen again or crisis?
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Blaze, for that question. I don't remember mentioning anything about ICT in any of my statements, but I will answer your question still. Yes, we are still using the SAP system. The ERP is an old system. Before we change from one ERP to the next, I'm making sure that the information there is accurate, and that I can rely on that information before we transfer to any type of new ERP system. Something that we didn't communicate to the public is that we also did 100% audit on all our electrical meters on the field. So we are aware of what type of readings are in the field, and we're comparing that internally too as well with our information. In terms of what type of software we use or protection that we're using, I wouldn't go into the type of protection that we're using in a public setting because I don't think discussing our security is a public discussion. But since the hack, we have spent enormous amount of money in protecting our software and our infrastructure as well. And we have put mitigating processes in place in order for us not to experience the same thing that we experienced in 2022. Because right now, if there should be some type of adverse event, we can get our system back up in 2 to 3 days. There's no guarantee that someone can never be hacked. The question is, how quick can you respond? And that's what we have in place.
Thank you, Mr. Washington.
but I don't understand if you continue to use that music for the tablet I mean, so that the more you and this cyber understand the transition uses the help if additional that's it. So is that
So,
But
um,
just to answer you,
okay.
SAP was not the issue. The issue was our level of security and the level of compliance. That was our issue. And if our ICT was doing the necessary backups, I could have been up in a day or two. But I lost about a year and change of data. So even though if SAP was a newer system, if not properly backed up, we would have been still in the same position. So it is not the ERP system, it's how our security was handled.
Okay, thank you for that question. Moving right along to Antonio. Antonio, you still here? Antonio left. Mr. Emil Lee would be the next one, please.
First of all, thank you. I think that the truth is painful, but it's necessary. I have three quick questions. When VROMI approves a building permit, is GB consulted to verify that there's sufficient capacity? And how do you prevent that too many permits are issued and GB doesn't have the capacity to fill those? As people now are evaluating options for this energy crisis, residents and businesses are considering solar. I know you touched on it. But when will GB come with a net metering policy so that people can make a proper evaluation on whether it makes financial sense for them? After the hack, the public prosecutors launched the Freya investigation. They wanted to examine the computers and the network to try and identify because a crime was committed. Due to NVGB's and the statement from the prosecutor's office says, due to NVGB's non-cooperative attitude, there's been no access to hacked computer systems at any time. Can you explain why that was the case?
Oh, that's a good bit of questions here. Again, could you ask the two questions? One was with the permits that GB is included.
when that HP still has to verify that there's a sufficient capacity.
That's an easy question. No. We have sat several times with the Ministry of Romi, requesting them the same question you're asking. It never materialized, and hopefully, I think we have a meeting next week again with the ministry, so that we can even be incorporated in the building, the request for building permit, so that we can also see what is coming online, because we have no clue what comes online. All these big projects what are right now under construction, we did not know until we read it in the newspaper or on the website, because nobody informs us. Even though as much as we can try to let contractors know that if you have developers that are going to build, have them come to GB, because it's not only a problem on GB side, but it's also a problem on the developer side, because they have to pay a connection fee. And if they don't know what their, at least get an idea of what their connection fee is, at the end of the ride, once that building is done, then they have faced with a huge connection fee that they cannot maybe or didn't incorporate in their financing. Second question. No, the other one for the building permit. Yeah? Okay, net metering. Yeah. Net metering is actually a policy that not GB, that government has to put together. It's not coming from GB side. No. No, we don't do that. Is if you look in the if you have let's say the copy of the concession, you can literally read it. It's in the concession. We only propose once requested to give an advice on what we would like to have. The studies, again, what Mr. Washington is also elaborating on with Energynautics, also is going to touch base on the buyback rate for these for let's say solar beam or alternative energy being pushed back into the net. Let's say like this: we have sat in several meetings with the consultants back in 2019 and then 2020 or 2021 in order to put the policy together, but we haven't heard anything else after that. No, not yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
So we have about. Okay.
The question was about what it was a crime. It was an oppressive information. Why did he not want it?
Mr. Lee, thank you for that question. In 2022, March 2020, when it happened, I was not at it. I was not there. I started in September 2022. So it would be tough for me to know what the management board was thinking at the time in order to not allow the popular prosecutors to take in July, of course, because in July of last year, GEBE also had an issue. We also had a cyber incident where we called in the public prosecutor, we called in the SDA, we called in Fox IT from Holland, and we had a whole network look at. So when I sit there, I do things in a right way, but I cannot speak for previous management.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Great questions. Lenora Canagiter, and great answers too.
Good evening, and thank you for this forum. I'm just speaking from a layman's perspective, so I may not even know what I'm asking, but I'm really focusing on billing accuracy. So I learned or I heard that the billing was being outsourced from St. Martin, and I wanted to know if that is true. And if it is true, how is the billing really done? And would that explain the high rate of how costly GEBE has become now through compared to past years? So I'm just asking about billing accuracy.
I take the question. If the billing is outsourced, no, it's not outsourced. GEBE personnel does the meter reading, and we bill our own clients. If why the bill is high, as we all know, the war in Ukraine started sometime 2022, 2023, if I'm not mistaken, that have impacted the cost of fuel. Believe it or not, out of the 20 islands in the region, St. Martin is the 17th cheapest in the region. Believe it or not. In terms of billing accuracy, like I mentioned, I think just now, we did a full field audit of all of our meters. We have all of the readings from all of our meters, and we are now mapping them to make sure that if there's any discrepancies. Thus far, we have not seen any discrepancies. The only thing we have is still about 250 clients still to be billed. Once those clients are built, of course, they're going to get something like 24 to 30 bills all in one shot. But hopefully, they took GEBE's advice and make average payments every month to their account. However, even though because it's GEBE fault, we are also still willing to make payment plans to these individuals. So I hope I answered your question, Miss.
The next question, Helen Solomons Brown.
Good evening. I have a recommendation to make, considering that when I analyzed the discussion this evening, prior planning prevents poor performance with regards to electricity, with regards to water. I would like to recommend if, for example, the street lights that they are being replaced by solar lights, and that project, for example, is financed by a surcharge being levied to the tourists that come to St. Martin. Thank you.
Thanks for your question, Mrs. Solomon.
Recommendation.
Oh, sorry, a recommendation. Yeah. In the past, yes, we have looked at putting solar panels or solar streetlights out there. The cost just to purchase the solar lights is ridiculous. A lot of the solar street lights, the solar panel goes bad very quick. Our UV rating here in the Caribbean is so high that the lifespan of these solar panels actually reduce. Even the solar panels on your roof, even if you don't maintain them, if you don't cool them down, they also become less efficient. So it has a big impact on that as well. Streetlights are not the ownership. GEBE is not the ownership or in ownership of the streetlights. GEBE only manages the streetlight grid for government. So we advise, we do the installation based on the requirements of government as well. So as you can see, we have changed out, let's say 90% of our lights right now have been changed out from the HPS lights to the LED lights. And we're going to keep changing them out as soon as we get, of course, another shipment in. It is a contractual agreement that we have. So there's only a certain amount of lights that we can change out for the 4 years that we have this contract. We do, with the streetlights, we do extensions, we do maintenance, we do upgrades. We are even now in collaboration with the KPSM putting cameras on the streetlight so that they can help the police also do crime investigations and also monitor traffic. So it's the streetlight grid is something very sensitive and also very, let's say, more accurate and more efficient now than it used to be in the past. Yes, we have more out there, a lot of streetlights out there. So yes, it's small, and also we have a small department that deals with it within GEBE. So we are doing our best to, of course, make sure that all are lit, all are not lit when they shouldn't be lit. But again, it is based also on the safety of the people.
Thank you. Kevin, super. Put you on up. The next question, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, oh, that's my voice. Thank you. Sorry about that.
You woke us up.
That's my voice. I can't do anything about it. First of all, thank you for doing something like this. I do hope in the future that we could find other ways to get the community more involved, to be a part of this, because a lot of them feel that they've been left out. Even though we have been here, RSVP, the bigger population still feels like they've been left out and literally kept in the dark, for a lack of better words. I asked my question here. Don't start the time. Anyways, that was just the thing. My boy Troy, big up yourself. But let's get to the question. For those living in the Belvedere area, I noticed on the weekends we've been losing water. There's no explanation for that. Can we get one today for that? Also, will we get some type of relief once the schools are out? Because schools will be out in about 3 weeks. So at least we might be suffering a little bit less from the load shedding schedule. When the hack happened, why didn't we just start from a clean slate and just move from there instead of trying to get the information that was there, which you could have done in the meantime, but just start everyone from zero, and I'm sure everyone would have been willing to come in and still pay their bills.
Thank you for your questions.
Quick. Also, GEBE is a government-owned company. When will GEBE put pressure on the government to assist, since GEBE has always been scratching their backs, and since this is a crisis, has the kingdom been asked to come in and assist?
Good question.
Thank
Thank you. Super. We might need you to repeat some of them, so you can hold on to the mic for a minute, please.
No problem. So once again, the Belvedere area for the last 2 weeks, every weekend they said that we're losing water, but there was no explanation for that.
Thanks for your question. Belvedere and let me say, Belvedere is basically the lowest area in the Lower Princess Quarter area, and it has increased significantly with the development and the growth of construction and people living in the Belvedere area. Now we have been upgrading the infrastructure. The problem with it is we cannot push water through a straw. So we have to increase the straw in order to be able to deliver the water to the areas. Now, because Belvedere pulls so much water, the higher areas in Dutch Quarter, Rice Hill, Oyster Pond get affected. So they don't
even get water. So during the morning hours, every day of the week, Rice Hill, Dutch Quarter has no water. So in order to compensate and give at least those people the opportunity to wash their clothes, to use some water during the weekend, that's the reason why we close off Belvedere for those 2 hours to give at least those areas some water. So it's difficult for us. Yeah, 4 hours. It's for 4 hours, a Saturday and a Sunday.
Yeah.
And yeah, we are trying. We are going to be upgrading the system. I think we are waiting approval of for the budget so that we can extend the water line that we install right now. That is from Zorgerus to the roundabout.
Yeah.
Will be extended to the Mount William Hill tank, and then will be extended to the entrance, actually, Belvedere, continuing to the Bishop Hill intersection. This will then relieve the whole pressure problem that we have in the lower Princess Quarter area.
Okay. Thank you.
The time span in order for us to do this this project, again, we're waiting on approval for budget. As soon as we get that, we should be able to complete the whole infrastructure work within 3 months. So, and we are not going to do the section from Zorgerus to the Mount William Hill tank, but we're going to do the section from the roundabout to Belvedere at the same time. So again, traffic, what you call it? Sorry? Yeah. Traffic will be hindered, of course, in that area once again, but it is for the better of the community, of course. In the meantime, too, what we have also requested is to increase the size of the tank in Mount William Hill as well. Right now, it's a bucket. As I said already, within an hour, that tank is empty if it doesn't have any water coming into it. I think the size of the tank is 400 cubic meters right now, and we're going to extend it and increase this tank size to 4,000 cubic meters of water. So that would give us a couple of days, let me say government really has a requirement of us having 3 days of water storage in case of emergency. We don't really need 3 days of water storage if you look at the calculations based on the amount of water production facilities we have. So we could actually go down to 2 days. But the size of the tank should be able to provide water for 3 days.
Oh, the other question, will we receive some type of relief once school is out? Because those schools will be closed, so maybe at least the load shedding times could decrease.
Yes, as I already mentioned, the reasons why certain areas don't go out is because of schools and, of course, the pumps, as I mentioned. So if the school areas are closed, of course, other areas will get more electricity, the time to get electricity than others, or the areas where I have the schools.
Yeah. Also, why didn't we just start with a clean slate after the hack?
That the hack happened in March of 2022. By the time I reached in September 2022, they already started with the recovery process. So instead of starting over, because if you start over, you still got to do the same process. The 43,000 accounts, got to get in there, and you got to get all them billed. So it was a situation where I found myself that I had to continue what already started, then try to start it. Because you have to picture it like this. Picture this table is a piece of glass, somebody just crash it on the ground, and then you have to go and pick up each glass bit and put it back together without any type of manual. That's the situation that the staff found themselves in.
All right. And also, GEBE seems to be scratching the government's back all the time. When will GEBE put the pressure on government to start putting in their part in the work? And also, since this is a crisis, has the kingdom been asked to come in and assist?
In the newspaper, I think article on Monday, I think it was mentioned that they had some type of kingdom crisis teams together. We had discussions on Sunday where you had the kingdom, and the kingdom meaning Aruba, Curacao, Bonaire, Saba, St. Maarten, and the Netherlands. We were discussing the situation. Government is involved. Before I came here, I was at the Council of Ministers having a discussion about this crisis. So government is involved. Government is trying. Government and GEBE together, we're trying to find solutions. I can't go too detailed into these discussions. However, just know that government is involved and GEBE will have a solution soon.
Thank you. And good luck, Shadira.
So it's a little past 6:30. We have 6 more questions. By round of applause, should we continue? All right. So I'm glad you're enjoying it. The next person would be Laura Hartman. It was? Okay. Carolyn has many questions. We just want to hear one great one, Carolyn.
Good evening, and thank you very much for having this. It's long overdue because, as the public, we just feel neglected, forsaken, and we just want to be part of the solution. You talked about the badge possibility of bringing in. Is there a timeline that is being looked at for that we can know? Because you don't want people going out there buying generators and doing a whole bunch of stuff if it's not necessary, for one. GB billing, I have a lot of concerns regarding that because Mr. Washington knows, but we, at a point in time when I was told, standing in front by the cashier, and I came to pay a bill, and I was told by the cashier, no, you cannot pay this bill because you have outstanding other bills. And I was like, no, I have all my bills. I keep a spreadsheet. I do the whole thing. And it was very clear from the lady. And she was like, look, you have a notice here. You can't argue with us. And I'm like, I'm not arguing. I'm trying to pay the bill that I have. We up to date and everything. And she was like, well, management's instructions is to pay the oldest bill. My concern with that is in the beginning when the bills came out, there were stupid bills. Yeah. And if payments were being applied to those stupid 3,000-4,000 Gilder bills, people's money would be going towards that until it got reduced. So in their mind, they may be current, and that is not the situation. And we went back and forth and all of that. And I was like, look, miss, I'm sorry. I don't want to be rude, but you can't tell me how to spend my money. I'm here to pay this bill. I'm working with you. And I think the whole public feels the same way. We are on board. We want to do our part, but we have to be included. And we should have had this kind of discussion from the hack. How could we get on board, get the bills where they need to be, and move ourselves forward?
Thank you, Carolyn. Thank you. Micheline, you want to assist with that?
I'm going to take the first half of the question, and then the second half, Micheline would answer. In terms of timeline, I think I mentioned the timelines with regard to the energy. I said if we do the power badge, it would be about 7 days. And if we do the containerized, about 2.5 months. And if we're willing to pay additional costs in terms of mobilization, we can get it a lot quicker. 7 weeks. No, sorry, 7 days. Sorry, 7 days. For the 7, from the day of signing to the day that the barge reaches, it will be 7 days. No. No. Our negotiations are very in a mature stage. We are looking between the containerized and the power barge. We at the moment still getting quotes coming in, but we're looking for the best price because the goal of this additional energy is not to pass it on to the population. So I got to make sure that the price is right before I commit in order to handle that, absorb that cost. So that we are vetting at the moment. We have prices in. We have about 2 or 3 companies now. Before the selection came towards 3 companies, and we're looking at the best fit. Because if I use a power badge, I'm here in 7 days, but we've got to make sure that the price tag that goes with it fits the budget as well. So that is what we are doing at the moment. Second part.
Concerning the billing issue, you are correct that in the beginning stage, when we had to bridge the gap of the missing data, we did an estimation. So the beginning of those bills, most of them was incorrect. It was either too high estimation or too low estimation. After we started to get current, we have to go back and fix all those estimation. That's where Mr. Washington mentioned 43,000 contracts you had to go back and fix. The issue with the payments is if that's why we was asking customers to just put the monies on the account and not attach it to a bill so that you get a receipt. When we go back to fix that initial bill, we have to undo all those payments. We have to undo it, go back, fix it, and then come back again. If the money is just sitting on the side, we can just do a mass reversal, reverse all the invoices, rebill it, and we move up. But if you make a payment in June and we have to go back to March 2022, we have to undo it in little steps. So that's why they're asking you to probably pay the first bill first. When we fix it, you will get your credit. You will get your credit. If you pay too much, you will get your credit. If you pay too little, you will get your debit. But if you're doing it, excuse me? Once,
another bill.
yeah, towards another bill. Once you pay 2,000, say your bill was 3,000 guilders, right? And you paid the 3,000 guilders. When we fix that, because we're going back to the accurate reading, when we get your accurate reading and your reading is lower, we create your new bill. Your new bill is now, say, 1,000. You will get a credit on that 3,000 that you paid. And that difference now that you paid too much will go towards your other bills. But that's why in the beginning we started asking persons, just put your monies on the account as a credit, let it sit there. When we fix the account, we will apply the payments. Some people, however, want a receipt. Once that money is applied to an invoice, to undo it takes a longer process and a more tedious process. So that's why, we're asking you to do it in certain stages that helps us with the undoing and the rebilling. I hope that answer your question.
Okay, and the next question, Judy Fitzpatrick.
Very good afternoon to everyone. Judy Fitzpatrick from the Daily Herald. I just wanted to make a quick statement and ask my question. Mr. Washington, you indicated that consumers only pay for what they use, and therefore GEB is the one that's losing money. Well, I beg to differ because businesses are losing money. The Daily Herald was not able to produce 2 issues, and we lost quite a bit of money. So we're all losing money in this process. So I wanted to ask, what arrangements will be made because the current is going so frequently, and because it's going so frequently, the chances of persons' equipment being damaged is higher. So what sort of arrangements will be made for persons to be reimbursed for damaged equipment? I know that the Daily Herald's generator was fried as a result of this, and we were not able to produce. And I also wanted to know, you indicated that GEBE knows the age of its generators. So therefore, why are we now hearing about this at the 11th hour? Thank you.
Mr. Patrick, thank you for your question. I will start with the last one. Why are we hearing that for the 11th hour? Again, I cannot speak for the decisions of past management. I'm right now sitting from September 2022 moving forward, and if we go back to any of my parliamentarian discussions with the Prime Minister on the floor of Parliament, we have always been transparent to the floor of Parliament that we have a capacity issue. I think one of the last parliamentary sessions that I had, the Prime Minister was mentioning on the floor of Parliament that we were thinking already about containerized energy. So from my administration moving forward, we have always done our best to be transparent with the population. Maybe we should communicate a bit more, which we're trying to do right now. I think Mr. Super asked, this is a RSVP setting, why not go public? We also have a radio shows that will be going on, et cetera, et cetera. So we are reaching out to the masses. So in that sense, again, I cannot answer for past management decisions. I can only answer for my decisions moving forward. And we are making plans, of course, for all of these engines. It takes time. It takes about 18 to 24 months. Even though if I had a cash today, it would still take us 24 months in order for have the engines then running. So that said, I hope I answered that part of your question. If you have clarification, please let me know. Go ahead. No, I'm going to turn that over to Pat. Yeah. In terms of the equipment, I mean, we have a process in place, but I will leave Mr. Drivers answer that because he's the one responsible for that.
Well, let me say like this. There is a claim form on the website. And once you fill out the claim form, what we do is once we receive it, we send our technicians out. And once we send our technician out, they go and do their necessary checks and balances and also measurements taken. There is, again, we go according to what is our law, and that is the concession. There are certain requirements that are within the concession that we have to abide by and also use in these claim situations. So if you have a copy of the concession, please read it because it will alleviate all these questions as well, and you will have a better understanding why certain things are done within GB as well. So there is a process in place. There is a claim form that can be what you call filled out. We do get the claim forms and the forms of the technicians, because myself and my colleague, Mr. Hernandez, are the ones who go through it. And we also use, again, the requirements that are set within the concession.
Okay, so the next person.
What would we like to share? The concession, sure, that could be shared. It's a public document, so sure.
Okay, we have 3 more questions. Marvio Cooks would be the next person, please.
Good evening, everyone. It is clear that GB has lost the trust of the people, and that's why receipts are needed. GB needs a multifaceted approach to regaining the trust of the people. From the hack, it was very clear the negligence that you took with the people's information, and that answer on the layered security, on cybersecurity, is weak, much like your security. You were running a server asking to be hacked. It was outdated by over 12 years. What are your processes to making sure that there's an audit on the information of everyone that's in here? Because we were lucky that we were not connected digitally to the electricity grid as well, because we are weak when it comes to layered security. That's one. Two.
Mr. Cooks.
I know, I got it. No worries. No. We here for this. School to solar program. When will GB run a schools to solar program? We know the schools take a lot of energy as well. We should be putting the schools to solar quickly. Two, a layered cybersecurity based on the threat of AI and the increasing frequency of attacks in the region. Training of employees to lessen the susceptibility of ransomware attacks. The fact that they didn't open that up and that there were rumors of a computer being at home and all kinds of craziness, as a cybersecurity person, that was clear negligence, and you have an obligation to protect our information, pure and simple.
Okay, so
Two,
Mr. Cook,
last
if you would give us a
one.
minute
Public to
to
solar
at
energy
least
program,
respond.
because people need help getting to solar as well. We need to know that many people in our society cannot afford solar, much less bread. So there has to be some kind of help. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Full 10 questions in one.
No, there was
But
10
I was-
questions
Okay,
in
just
one statement.
hold on so that they could.
This is annoying.
I understand, but he has to stay so we could answer.
We could understand the questions, which was my question.
No, it's
If
annoying.
you can pause so they can actually respond.
Okay, regarding the hack, you're correct. It was outdated in equipment. The policies were not followed, no compliance, correct. But since we have updated the system, it's a totally different picture today. I wouldn't go into the details of what we have done, but we have done, before we did the implementation of the updated infrastructure, we have done an internal penetration test to see where the loopholes were. Based on the penetration test, we have purchased the necessary equipment from the top companies, and we have implemented that. And when we did another test, we came out almost every item on that list 100%. So we are still fine tuning. We have implemented like MFAs and all type of stuff. Right now, the USB sticks, etc., are not usable within the organization. We're going to centralize printing. We're doing a lot of stuff that, of course, I want to discuss that publicly. But we have gone from, let's call it not American, let's say a 2. We're up to now to an 8 in terms of grading. So we're striving to reach a 10. I think we have made significant strides in the 1 year and change I've been at the organization. I don't have to say it. You can ask the staff who's helping me with it. So yes, we went from very poor. Now I think we are very good at the moment. Second question?
School to solar.
School to solar. I mean, right now, yes, we don't mind looking into things like that. But however, our goal at the moment is to stabilize our grid. Once we get our grid stabilized, we can think of all of the additional stuff that we would love to add. But at the moment, school to solar is probably maybe a mega 2, and we're down 14. So if I have to get that stabilized first, where my staff now can get the necessary time in order to start planning and focusing on those type of projects. At the moment, even though it's a great project, great suggestion, it's not on our priority list. Priority is getting those 40 megawatts for us to stop this load shedding issue.
Last one was solar program for the public for assistance, standardized program.
Actually. Well, you said it yourself. Solar is not cheap, and we have looked at and spoken to a lot of our sister islands in the Caribbean who have solar, who have wind turbine, who have hydro. And if you look at the cost of their tariff rate, they're higher than us, even though they have solar. Solar is, let me say, alternative energy. Alternative energy is not cheap. So you can do the research. They have enough reports out there. It is not cheap. Yes, it's beneficial for a client, but of course, the large investment deters these clients or the clients to purchase alternative energy. Going back, if you look at some, like I'm just going to name our sister island of Sabre on Statia, they can go basically 100% on solar. But look at their tariff. Their tariff is on 72 cents. Our island, a sister island of Anguilla, over nearly a guilder a kilowatt hour. We are right now at 60, if I'm not mistaken, 62 cents. So yes, we are 62 cents, but yet we are one of the lowest tariff. We have the lowest tariff rates in the Caribbean. So if we have to go into a solar program, I don't think we would have an issue doing it, but of course we have to look at the cost. We not only have to look at the cost, but we also have to look at the specification and the injection of these productions within to our grid. Curacao charges you a fee to be connected to the grid if you have solar. Aruba does the same. So the buyback rates is not as lucrative as you think it is. It's not. So if you have a solar installation that you could, if you had, for example, the older meters like what we had, the manual ones, if you had those and you could spin it back, like what a lot of clients have been doing, you would have got your return of investment less than 3 years. Now, if we do implement a buyback tariff, it goes up to 7 years. Do the maths. It is not cheap to have an alternative energy source that can provide you lesser, let me say, costs that is, or energy that is less of cost. Trust me. And the reports are there.
Thank you, Mr. Drivers. The next question, MP Ludmila de Weaver.
Good evening. Let me make sure it starts so that I don't stay here forever, considering those are three of them are my ex-colleagues. So my question is related to what Kevin said earlier on about GEBE being a government-owned company. But the reason I actually stood up here, came up still, was because I want to respond to something that both Mr. Hernandez said and Mr. Washington. Mr. Hernandez, you said, in order for us to change the contract or the agreements with the large consumers like AUC, we need government for that. That's one fact said. And then Mr. Washington said that GEBE in the past was subsidizing the fuel clause. So for what decisions is it just GEBE? And what decisions do you need government? I would like you to clarify that because Kevin said GEBE is a government-owned company. When are we going to put the pressure on government? And what I would like to say is, I hope right now, being in the position that we're in, GEBE, every person there feels empowered to put pressure back on government. Because as an insider there, I know the pressure that was coming down on GEBE, which is not only GEBE's fault for why we are here today, but I want you to feel empowered to push the pressure back up there when they're asking you to do certain things. So let me just rephrase my question. In what capacity do you need government to make an agreement with your grootverbruikers or your large consumers, like AUC? And is it really only GEBE's 100% authority decision to give people a break on the fuel clause? Thank you very much.
I'll start with the second question, and then Hernandez would get with the first question. In terms of the fuel clause, my articles of incorporation states that once my relief or payment is not above 50,000 guilders, I can make the decision on my own Once above 50,000 guilders, I would need a supervisory board approval. Remember, fuel clause is a pass-through. So if the company thinks of absorbing that cost and is above 50,000 guilders, I would then need a supervisory board backing. And an example of that is in October last year, the fuel clause would have been extremely high. And in consultation with the supervisory board, we passed a resolution in order to spread that cost in order not to kill or burden the population. So that was a decision made on GEBE, protecting the population from high bills again.
So just to confirm, it is 100% your decision with the approval of the supervisory board of directors.
Correct, because
Okay.
the fuel clause is not a fixed rate.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for clarifying that.
Thanks for your question. The assistance that we used to be getting, let me put it this way, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, on several occasions, we did not have to do load shedding. Even though in the power plant we lost an engine, we lost 2 engines. Why? I had a list of the hotels, the big casinos, the big consumers. And I used to grab the phone, call them, and ask them, can you come out 4 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours? And they used to comply, used to help, assist. And guess what? Nobody was left out of power. But of course, you can do it once, you can do it twice. But guess what? The third time, they're going to ask, okay, are you going to assist us or help us with the fuel bill? And I said, I cannot answer that. So when I say that the government intervention is needed, is maybe government has to see that the energy crisis we have, there are some potential clients that can be running on their own generation, but they need also that assistance from government because the fuel is not cheap. So I think if government can intervene with the fuel suppliers or supplier, okay, we can come to some sort of, well, not we, they can come to a sort of agreement, and then we can get much more assistance from those big consumers that are not helping us no more, okay, but they can come back. And I can assure you, maybe the load shedding can be cut in half, something.
Thank you for that. I was looking exactly for that because, again, you're asking government to do something that you guys are 100% in charge of and have the authority of when it comes to the fuel. And that's why I wanted that to be very much clarified, because you're going to government to ask for a fuel break, but then you have the authority in GEBE to make a decision whether or not to give us a break on fuel. So that's what I wanted to say. And now, since you guys have clarified for me the different decision makers involved in the process, so how far, really quickly, who is the person needed to make a decision that if we have a new development, I'm going to take the decision that any new development using a consumption level over some amount will have to generate their own fuel on their own electricity on their own. Because neighboring islands do it. And this is the reason I'm asking you of who the owner is of this decision making, because if you don't know who the owner is, and I'm looking at all of you of the decision making, then how are we going to get past the point? That's all I'm asking you to think about. Because what I've heard here tonight, when you all were talking, was that everybody, you keep passing the buck. Is it government to blame? Is it GEBE? But we're in a position now that you have to just be real. That's all. I know what you all are capable of. I worked with you when we cleaned up. So thank you so much.
Can you just clarify the part with the fuel with government? Could you clarify the part with the fuel and government? Because the fuel...
The way that I interpreted what Mr. Hernandez said was that we need government to also come into the conversation to see how we can help the grootverbruikers, the large consumers, to give them a break with the fuel clause, but then with the fuel. Sorry, with the fuel. Sorry, with the fuel. Sorry. So then there it is, fuel. But again, if you all are charging, I don't know, you have to just explain, like, if you're charging fuel clause to them, can you give them the break on the fuel clause? So are we expecting government to give them a break on the cost of fuel, or can you do that in the fuel clause? That's what I was trying to figure out.
Okay.
Hopefully that's cleared up.
Yeah. Because what Hernandez is trying to say, Yeah, I understand your question. Got it.
Because so that's why some people understood, some people didn't. Because I asked specifically fuel clause you're in charge of as GB, but then you're asking government for help with fuel. So I just needed that to be cleared up.
No, clear.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just to touch base on the development part, yes, within the concession, there is an article that GB can refuse any connections above a certain kVA. So yes, we do have the right to not connect entity or business to the grid.
Okay, so we have 2 final questions. Did you want to respond to that?
The reason why we haven't, because we didn't need, because now we have back then when we connected these clients, we didn't have a problem with load shedding. Now because the clients are online and we have a problem with our engines, of course now the problem becomes
Right.
it's not a lack
Okay,
of
so
foresight. It's not a lack of foresight. It is again the maintenance part on the generators, the age of the generators, all of these come to play when you're looking at this right now. You cannot predict a engine going down. It's a mechanical equipment. It's equipment that can fail, just like a fan, just like a car. Is the same thing. So you cannot predict these type of things. The age.
Voice that says 30 years. You know it's getting old. I'm sorry.
But as Troy, as Mr. Washington has already said, we didn't make those decisions. And again, as manager, but not C-level, I don't make those decisions either. And we have met it, we have worked with it, and now we are trying to fix it.
So, just for the sake of time, there are other people who have submitted specific questions. So,
Just let me
if you can
clarify
just
something.
wrap this up so we can just close off, and then maybe you can have a one-on-one.
I'll just clarify one thing. GB, when it's operated optimal, our operating capacity is 73.5 megawatts. And the peak load is between 57 and 60 megawatts. So if everything is running, we do have capacity. But the issue is we're facing breakdowns, unexpected breakdowns. Like if you have a load, if let's say your peak capacity is 60, you have 73.5 as your operational capacity. You lose 11 off the grid in one shot, plus 2 engines break down. Then you're going to fast feeling the problem. So it's not about foresight. It's about, remember, all the engines we mentioned were only used for as a peak shaver and not part of our complete production. So that's 2 different ways of looking at the whole scenario. So we shouldn't just lump everything into one and say in terms of foresight. Because even though it was not our decision, we still, if you go and look at it theoretically, we have 73.5 megawatts of operational capacity. Just wanted to clarify that part.
Okay, so we have 2 last questions. One by Michelle Williams, which was a very interesting question. So we can just wrap up with that. And then the final one by Joycelyn Hanley.
I remember.
One moment, please.
Thank you, Phil, for forwarding me a second question. I feel very honored to do so.
It was a good one.
My question is based on the total capacity. You said that there's a 14 megawatt shortage at the moment that we're fighting against, and I've heard you guys mention that there are approximately 43,000 accounts. How much percent of my household would I have to maybe sacrifice so that we can help each other narrow the gap of this 14 megawatts?
What can we do?
Do I not run my air codes even when I have power and I can't do whatever I want in my household? If we all contribute a little bit, maybe we can help each other through this gap. So how much percent of my household do I have to sacrifice in order to make sure people I have a small child at home as well, that the elderly, the children, that we can all maybe have enough power to sustain ourselves? How much percent of my household?
Percentage right now, I can't tell you. Yes, of course, every little bit helps. We are even going a step further with our new meters that are out there. We can even stop load shedding by reducing the output of, or let me say the consumption of flow through the meter. So we could reduce that, and basically you could only have a fridge and lights working in order for us to be able to load shed, but you don't feel it, but you have power.
But if you go, of course, over that amount that we set it at, of course, the meter trips and then you will be out of power. But of course, that comes, we are busy with it. There are several meters that we have installed a lot of those meters already. It's now just to have the remote system put together and so that we could start testing. So that is going to come. Yes, again, every little bit helps. I have not done the calculation on what percentage based on, again, 40 something accounts. It is not even 40,000 accounts. It's actually 20 something accounts in electrical. So it's basically half. And the two accounts is water and electrical.
Great. And I do feel we can put out some recommendations on what the community can do to help alleviate the load and what to do in the event
Another question.
of
I need more of
outages.
that paper.
Yeah.
We can.
Thank you for that.
A lot of my questions that I have were answered here. I live in Malaysia.
Awesome.
I have a business, and I have to dress in my car because the house is hot. You bathe, you sweat. I just want to know. Some of my questions were answered. Some didn't make sense. The answers didn't make sense. But I want to know if there's a light inside. When there's going to be normalcy once a day. I'll settle for once a day. No, but I'll settle for once a day. 4 or 5 times. And I have a business. I'm losing business. And I don't want to even go more because I am frustrated. I'm depressed. And everything that comes with it. Okay, so whatever you guys can do, let us do. It's crazy.
So, well, thank you all so much for being here. If there are any final closing remarks, I'll ask Mr. Washington to make those.
With regards to the question, normalcy, like I mentioned earlier, if from the day of signing the contract with the engine provider that we plan to buy 3 engines, it would take 18 to 24 months. That's a fact. That cannot change no matter what we do. It will stay 18 to 24 months because engines are not off the shelf. They are built from scratch to completion. In terms of going back to normalcy, I also mentioned that we're discussing with the power barge and as well as containerized engines. So we expect to have some type of signing or let's say coming to close an agreement by early next week. And then that we will also share with the public when we think we can have those additional megawatts in our grid. We hope that the power barge that we're looking at, and then you can look on their website. We can handle power hurricanes up to category 4. And anytime it's a category 5, even the power plant shuts down and the power barge would unplug and sail out and come back in. So we look at all of those angles, and of course we're trying to get those extra megawatts here before the hurricane season that people can, before the peak, peak of the hurricane season. So I hope that answered the question.
Yes. So thank you to the panel.
Just to add
Yes.
also to what Mr. Washington is saying, we are not the only island that is facing this issue. The Dominican Republic also what you call it, has those power barges. St. Kitts and Nevis also had the containerized, the generators. So yes, we are pushing it. We have been working very hard, especially this week, to get the numbers together for government so that we can make a decision for next week.
All right. So this is just one of many more series to come. So we will be announcing the ongoing series and we will be breaking them down to focus on specific departments and questions. So for the sake of time, unfortunately, we will be wrapping up at this moment. But if you do have a specific question, by all means, you can approach the management team with that particular question. Okay, so give them a round of applause, Mr. Troy Washington, Michelin Stephen, Patrick Drivers, Ramiro Hernandez, who's actually load shedding right now. And thank you all for your wonderful participation, your great questions. And again, we will continue working together to discuss these questions and explore solutions so people are more informed and more involved. All right, have a wonderful evening. And again, thanks for coming to the Candid Conversations with NVGEBE.